Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa over there.
Hello.
I'm Kelly. I still have a little bit of the con crud going on here.
Just
So
never ends.
please forgive me. Vanessa.
Yeah.
The other day.
Yeah.
Getting ready for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And open the freezer.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what should I have? Steak? Chicken? Fade to black? I am a victim of your throwing movies you do not like into the freezer of the person who recommended or does like them.
Correct.
What I want to know is this.
Okay.
So you talked about Fade to Black.
Yes.
And you said you hated it.
Yes.
I said I liked it.
Yes.
I assumed that what I got was your copy, except that it's still in the cellophane.
Oh, jeez. One of those, huh?
Yeah. So, it's still in the cellophane?
Yeah, I was like, did she buy this new just to pull a prank on me?
No, I think, okay, so what's going No, I had bought that a couple years back in one of those moments of like, oh, look, it's a special edition copy that's still available from Vinegar Syndrome, which is a little bit rare. I should go ahead and get this because I like the premise. It sounds awesome. And then when it came to time to watch it, I still have a lot of my DVDs. I have all the like special editions and the cool looking ones that I've watched and love and like and can talk about out. And the ones I haven't gotten to yet are in boxes that have to be rummaged through. And if I can find it streaming somewhere free rather than go through boxes, I will do that.
That's fair.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I laughed very, very hard.
Oh, good.
It was one of those moments where, your brain is just trying to put together what it's seeing.
It's like, this is not a steak.
Then when it hit, I laughed. Now I need to know, how long has that been there? Because I open my refrigerator, no lie, at the very minimum 2 times a day, the freezer. And I had not noticed it.
I am shocked. I thought you were going to notice it that night. And I was like, I guess he doesn't need his steaks.
So how long
Several
ago?
days at least.
It was at least, I don't know, maybe a week?
Okay, it was. I thought you were going to say it was 3 weeks or something like that.
No, I actually had brought it to hide it in your freezer right after the show. However, you didn't pee at the right times for me to do it. So I had to wait an additional period of time until it was the right moment. And then I put it in there, and then you're still in the bathroom. And then I was like, oh, I shouldn't have it stuck to the ice cube. So I removed it, hoping that it wouldn't get stuck to anything. But
now, see, if you put it on the ice tray, that is what I go in every morning. I fill my.
It's like right next to it.
You know what? Somehow I missed it.
Oh my God.
But I love it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I mean, at least you didn't have to say, hey, come to the next time we record after that. Say, hey, Kelly, can I get some ice out of your freezer or something?
I never would have told you. I never would have said it. You would have been moving out and been like, wait a minute.
I don't remember putting this in here.
3 years later.
Okay. Vanessa, another thing. So you've got some kind of fun news, but it surrounds the fact that you're not going to be here for a couple episodes.
Unfortunately, yes. I am finally going on my honeymoon many moons after my wedding. I had to kind of time it from when I was finished teaching. So I will be out of town for a little bit, a week and a half, which means I will be missing 2 episodes with you guys.
I assume you're going to a John Carpenter location?
We talked about it. We talked about it very seriously. No, we'll be going to Hawaii where my mom has a timeshare.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it should be really fun. I'm really excited.
Island of Hawaii or one of the...
So Kauai and then the Big Island, yes.
Man.
Kauai is... I love Kauai.
It's my favorite
Love that,
place.
yeah.
It's like one of my favorite places on planet Earth. So I'm really excited to just go and veg.
Never been there except for the airport so that we could go to Maui because
Ah.
my family used to vacation to Maui every Christmas.
Maui's the only island I have not been to.
Well, I mean, they're all the same, right?
They're pretty
Just
nice.
lovely weather and
Yeah.
hanging out on the
The,
beach.
the biggest difference with Kauai is it's really small. It's one of the smallest islands,
It's
so
a rural.
it's like
It's like postcard Hawaii. It's like the trees and like you can just find an empty beach and just lay there. Like
Yeah.
it's very I mean, it's touristy, but it's not as touristy.
Yeah, I think I told you guys that when I graduated, my folks basically just told me, "Hey, we're moving to Maui. What are you
That's
doing?" Well, I
amazing.
guess I better figure that out.
It's a good place to have to go home to, though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool. I'm excited for you, and we will have some lesser guest host.
Damn right. You're not replacing me. I will show up regardless. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, turns out Tony's a perfect fit. I will still be here on Sunday, 5 minutes late. I'll be like, get out of my chair, Tony.
Well, if it is Tony, I'm going to make him speak in a falsetto voice and pretend to be you. So,
oh wow, that'd be interesting.
I bet he'd be up for the task. But he does have a lovely voice, so it would be a shame.
let's talk movies, you guys. I saw a couple of really cool things. Malum. Have
What was
you
it?
heard of
Malum,
this?
no.
Malum.
Uh-uh.
I don't know.
This was a highly rated new film rental. I watched it. I liked it, but about 20 minutes into it, I was like, this is very familiar to me. And I started looking it up, and it is a remake by the same director
Yeah.
of the film The Last Shift that came out
Oh, really?
5 years ago.
Huh.
About the lone female officer who's in a closed down police
Yeah.
department and then is overrun by the satanic.
Pretty strong, super low budget.
Well,
Film.
that's what really bothered me about it. This movie is much better than that.
Okay, cool.
But that movie was still okay.
Yeah.
Why would you blow your bigger next film budget on a remake of the last film, which was still okay?
I can only assume that they got a budget to remake that film. I can't imagine like why else you would do it. If some producer was like, "Hey, I saw this little thing that you did. Let's try it with a bigger budget, retitle it, see if we can get like more money in it."
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think it did have a very, very limited theatrical release, this one. I liked this very much.
Mm.
There was something, I don't know, a little scarier about the original, probably because it was grittier and more low budget. But this one was very good. It is a really neat, creepy story, and I definitely recommend it. And I like this guy a lot. I'd like to see what he does next. I hope it is not a much bigger budgeted remake of this film.
Evil Dead 2. No, Army of Darkness. We're good.
Speaking of Evil Dead, I went and saw the current
Oh,
Evil Dead
Rise.
Evil Dead Rise
Rising.
film or whatever it's
Yeah.
called. I'm just broken.
You
I'm
didn't
just
like
a-
it?
I didn't I didn't hate it. Like I could tell there was good stuff happening in it and there was interesting stuff but nobody was like a bad actor. It wasn't a bad setting. It wasn't a bad plot, but there was just something about it that was really grating on me. And I don't know if you guys ever have this. Do you ever watch like a movie and feel like it's not okay you're watching it? Not very often.
Oh, please explain.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I saw The Omen for the first time, I remember afterwards being like, I don't think I'm supposed to watch this movie. And I kind of get the like curse and the like all these horrible things that have happened after, like it's not, I don't know. There was just something like really unsettling. And I was like, I gotta like go to church. Like, I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel
Okay.
good about this film that I just saw. I feel like I crossed a line somehow. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing.
I think I have a version of that, and it's a kind of sub that both Kelly and I enjoy a lot. The looking for that lost film that screened one time and drove the audience insane.
Sure.
Like Cigarette Burns is just a brilliant version of that. That kind of movie intrigues me, even though I don't believe anything like that actually exists. But Maybe it's because I wasn't raised Catholic, but I could see
Yeah.
where if you have.
I think there is something, and like when I see a I don't know, like I felt like I needed to watch the Russell Crowe Catholic priest movie afterwards
The
to
Pope's
just
Exorcist.
to even it all out again. And it's you know, and also of course Evil Dead is you know, it's a kind of a prequel, so it's not going to end with. It's very pessimistic in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah.
It's an extremely dark film, and the fact that there's just fucking, all right, kids be fucking dead now was a lot to kind of watch. Like there's a real negativity around it, in just the way that it deals with its heroes. So I don't know. For me, it was not great.
Let's drill down on this and make you really uncomfortable.
I was like, I should not talk
So-
about this.
I mean, this is way more fascinating than the movie. I'm curious then, you did say when we originally talked about this that you weren't a big fan of the Evil Dead movies. Is it
Yeah.
because of that reason also on the other ones?
No, because it's slapstick. It's like slapstick, and like it's supposed to be funny, but I never laugh, and it's supposed to be dark, and it's like too much, and I've just not enjoyed them.
Okay, now, you mentioned The Omen. Is there another movie that kind of makes you feel this way?
Oh, there's definitely been other ones, but I can't think.
Are they religious like Exorcist?
Well,
or
no, because
No,
Evil?
the
what I'm
religious
getting
ones
at,
are better.
yeah, what I'm
Okay.
getting at is like
Yeah.
you love The Wicker Man,
Yeah,
but you
Yeah.
didn't the first time.
yeah.
Is this something that you could watch again and maybe go,
I
oh,
don't think it's smart enough for that.
okay, fair.
Like
fair.
Wicker Man is like talking specifically about somebody's relationship with religion versus other forms of religion. This is just like a made up book with a bunch of fucked up drawings and a lady who does horrible things to her kids.
Is that part of it?
Oh, yeah.
The family relationship, and
I think
I mean, a
it's-
mother hurting her kids is a bad thing, right? I
think
think we
it's
could all
like-
agree on that.
So okay, so one of the 10 commandments, right, is Jesus, is taking the Lord's name in vain, right? So there are certain people I know who every time they say like or hear it, they get like they do a little cross or they feel really like ill at ease. I feel like films where it's like we're just going to talk about demons willy-nilly and fucking like open that concept without even acknowledging any of the religious aspect. I don't know, there's something weird about it. Like it feels like I don't know.
Like it needs
It's
the,
super nihilistic for sure.
Yeah,
It's like we're talking about demons, but there's not a equally good
there's
version
no
of them
priest.
at all.
No, there's
no
no, yeah,
priest
there's
that
no
can-
priest, there's no infiltration of any religious level at all. And in fact, any religion that they are talking about is like just total bullshit,
Right.
right? So like they're just like, hey, we're going to take this thing from this religion that we do not know or care anything about, and we're going to infuse it into our film and just utilize it.
Now the follow-up that they're talking about might have some of that. Maybe not the best religious guys, but
Right.
Mhm.
the follow-up's supposed to be like more about the creation of the book or something like that, and how the
Thought it was. I mean, we
recorded
see the
rec
picture
albums
of
and-
the 2 or 3 priests holding the
Yeah.
book, and it's supposed to be that set in the 1920s.
That's
want-
probably better.
I want
to me,
everybody
but-
to rewind this and listen before Vanessa gets into this. She goes, so the 10 Commandments, Jesus. The first one is you don't take the Lord's name in vain.
right there. Self-awareness is
I
good.
knew I did know that I'm especially bad at this because my best friend who was a different form of religion when we were growing up, but she every time I would do it, she'd be like, "Oh my God, like you cannot do that. You cannot do that." And I just have never been able to not do that. So I 100% understand that I'm the last person who should be saying or doing that. But there's just like sometimes when you watch something, you're just, I don't know. When I went to the Voodoo Museum in Louisiana, there's this like little hole in the wall, like just like weird little things people made, and people are leaving money for it. And it's just like, this is fucking not okay. Like there's something in the universe and we're fucking with it. And we need to stop because let's not rattle this cage. Let's just back away and not look at the cage at all. Let's just separate ourselves from the cage.
Vanessa, I've never loved you more than I love you now.
I don't
I
believe
mean,
you at all.
well, no, I'm serious. I mean, I think there is something well, obviously you're sincere and earnest about this, but I also think there's something to be said about a society that kind of poo-poos these things and says it doesn't matter. And then you look at our society, which is obviously falling apart,
Right.
and you go, well, who knows?
Something
Maybe it
might.
does matter. Maybe if we were all a little more, I don't want to say religious, but
But
a little more
thoughtful of
thoughtful of negative
Yes.
and
like what we're putting out there and what we're
yeah.
getting
Yeah.
back. Yeah, there's just I don't know. I feel like it's like those people with ghosts, right? It's like if you try to cross over and like communicate with something out there, maybe it's going to answer back, and maybe you shouldn't do that.
Like-
Like you're playing with shit that like maybe we shouldn't be playing with. I don't know.
Yeah. Don't worry about the people. Don't try to figure out the people who don't need religion to be good people. Worry about the people who need religion
To be
help
good.
them be a good
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Maybe those people should be religious people, actually.
Eric, what extremely embarrassing thing are you going to reveal about yourself on today's episode?
Probably nothing other than I foolishly followed a Craig letterbox listing of his favorite
Oh.
films and noticed there was one I had not seen. So I watched Brain Damage,
Ah,
the 80s one about the guy who there's like a little old couple trying to keep this thing from coming out, and it escapes and takes over his brain, and he has to
Yeah, this sounds familiar.
feed it things.
I think I've seen part of it on a
There-
Last Drive-In episode.
Probably is.
bath-
It's very Last Drive-In.
Is there a bathtub scene?
Yes,
Okay.
couple
Yeah,
of
this sounds familiar.
hmm I can
Craig
see.
rated this highly, I imagine.
Yes, I can see why Craig liked it. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, it's I'm good. It's I mean, it was weird. It's a weird film. Yeah, I'm glad I finally watched it because it's one of those you see the poster of all the time and hear people talking about, and I'd never seen it. Going,
Right.
all right, I'll finally check it out. I'm glad I did. It had some good stuff. It also had a very lot of obviously kind of forgettable stuff, unfortunately. Sorry, Craig. But I'm glad I watched it. Thank you for it being the only movie on your list I had not seen.
Well, speaking of movies like that, I was scrolling through Prime and trying to find something, and I had a very specific feeling I wanted for this movie. You know, hopefully something I hadn't seen already, but mid 80s horror. And I came across this poster of a movie I passed by every weekend at the video shop because I just knew it could not be any good. It was called Death Ship.
Oh,
Do you
shit.
remember this poster with the
I
boat
know
coming
I know
right
the
at
movie,
it?
yeah.
It's got the skull-looking
Uh-huh.
stains on it and
Yeah.
some survivors in a
It-
raft.
It's a pretty good poster.
It is. Have you seen the movie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I watched the movie and I was almost delighted with it.
Let me
Really?
double check, make sure I'm thinking of the same one.
It's got George Kennedy and Richard Crenna in it. They are the captains of a cruise ship that goes down, and then they're like 9 survivors, and they get picked up by this haunted, turns out to be a Nazi
Incredible.
transport. I kind of want to like make this a subgenre, like, you know, World War II horror
Oh, yeah.
that has
there you
come
go.
back or
Oh,
something,
yeah.
because this movie is not good.
No.
It's definitely not great. I'm smiling the entire time because George Kennedy then becomes possessed by the evil of the boat in a kind of Jack Torrance way. And it's like The Shining on a boat, and he's, you know, hearing the ghosts talk to him and all this stuff. And
That's extremely fun.
there's like this girl who gets trapped in a shower that turns to blood, and then she can't get out of the shower, and she's screaming, and finally she just crumples on the floor. And I'm thinking, well, nothing is really happening. I mean, the blood is coming down on you, but it's also going down the drain. It's not like filling up the shower stall or anything. And she's losing it. She's bouncing off the walls in the shower stall and finally just crumples to the ground. And I was like, this is so ridiculous. Nobody who was filming this thought, you know, well, what's actually happening to her here?
Uh-huh. Not much.
Nothing.
They did that kind
Absolutely
of scene
nothing.
for this movie.
Yeah, it's got 2 kids in it that are really annoying.
Yeah.
But they do a nice foreshadowing where the boy has to get up and pee every night anyway, and then at one point he has to go and pee on the haunted boat alone, and I thought that was really good. I just ended up loving the film actually.
I ended up not liking it, but for a specific reason. If I think I just watched it cold, I would have been fine with it like you, but I watched it based on something I'd read out of a group of lists that had all these great films. Oh, wow, this is one of those undiscovered gem
Mm.
kind of movies. It's like, no, it's not.
Well, you know what? I
But-
felt like that when I watched it.
But from that perspective, no, as an actual good horror, scary film, not as this is a fun film to watch.
Oh.
It's ridiculous. So if I'd been able to,
Yeah.
I could see where it would be very entertaining.
Well, there's a part of me that just loves coming across any old film where George Kennedy or Leslie Nielsen is playing a serious role
Right.
because
Yes.
after The Naked Gun, I can't think of them in anything serious.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
It's like that Animal movie I did years ago where,
Yes.
where he was on it as the lead guy trying to save everyone. It's like, this is weird.
Right, right.
Make a joke about beavers.
Oh, Jesus.
So that was Death Ship.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to kind of change topics a little bit. I read this really cool comic
Hmm.
called The Autumnal. It was on a lot of lists for I think it was last year, maybe the year before. And it's kind of one of those, there's a strange town that somebody is kind of put into a situation where they have to return to or go and visit, and the town is not what it seems. And it's got a lot of if anyone read The Witch, or Witches, or like that, it's got a very similar vibe to that, where there's a witch sort of thing it's just really good. It was dark and it was strange. It was very I'm ready to read this in fall. Just very atmospheric, good comic.
The Autumnal.
The Autumnal.
A continuing series or a...
Nope,
Okay.
just a one shot.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend it. I started reading it on, I guess it was yesterday morning, and then I just read it all the way through. Just let a couple hours slip by and be like, I'm not getting up until I finish this.
Wow,
very
that's
nice.
very cool. Now, back to movies here. No, TV. We got the trifecta. Old school British TV. A
Ooh.
British comedy series called The Comic Strip.
Hmm.
Have you ever heard of this?
Not heard
Mm-mm.
of this one.
It started about the same time as The Young Ones and
Oh.
had some definite crossover between a few of them as far as actors and things, and had at least one of the ladies that went on to be an absolutely fabulous. And but as opposed to The Young Ones, which was like a sitcom kind of thing, this was mini movies. Nihilistic as hell and funny as hell.
Oh my God.
Nihilistic movies. The first one was the first episode is a whole bunch of supposed to be little kids.
Uh-huh.
They're adults, but they're dressed up in school uniforms and stuff like that. And they go on an adventure, and the adventure runs into like people assassinating people and people with like coke and all this stuff, and they all always call we've got to call the police, and it ends so dark where they find their uncle who's been kidnapped. I'll just spoil it for you because it really doesn't matter. And he is gay. And in Britain at the time, that was illegal. So the kids call his uncle, call the cops on his uncle. And the next one's darker. It's a World War II sort of thing, but everybody's fucking idiots. It's got a what do you call it? Like the deer hunter, the
Russian
It's
roulette.
got one of the Russian roulette scene in it and it has a hand grenade involved. And it's really weird. They did at the same time in the US was making some tiny movie about a band in trouble called Spinal Tap.
Mm.
They did a movie called Bad News.
Yes, I remember it well.
That's the same group of people. That is
The Young Ones.
They
then.
came out of the comic strip, and Young Ones started literally like a month apart,
Okay.
and a whole bunch of the same people involved in both.
Okay.
But this is a Severin release, so it's got
Hmm.
the 2 bad news movies, the 3 seasons of the comic strip, and all this shit. And I'm like, kind of I don't know, British comedy I like a lot. Let's give it a shot. I am so glad I got this. It is so good.
Yeah, I think that the thing I learned about TV, British TV living there is they will fucking try anything.
Oh, geez,
And
yeah.
like they are not afraid to just go wherever there is, because if you just imagine Washington State could make whatever it wanted and they were in charge of our own TV, like that's what it's like in England.
Mhm.
It's a small place and there's a lot of talent and they all kind of like just cross shows and they share ideas and they're just throwing shit out there.
This was the first show ever on BBC 4 when
Wow,
it started
Channel
up.
4.
This was their show to start off the whole thing. And like I said, I don't know, I think it was BBC 3 had the young ones or whatever. But it was like there's at least 2 people. The guy who had the stars in his forehead on the young ones is in comic a lot, and the bigger guy who kind of shows up and just does random shit is on the young ones is in a lot of the comic strip. And there's a lot of integration, writers and directors and everything. So if you like the young ones, but you didn't think it was dark and grim enough, you're gonna like Comicsy.
Oh my God.
I
Incredible.
would love to borrow this if you don't
Oh, yeah,
mind.
yeah.
I haven't seen the second Bad News movie, so
Okay,
I would.
cool.
Wow, that's exciting. Okay, should we take a little break then? And then when we come back, we're rocking like Walken.
We're born alone. We die alone. And in between, we spend our lives looking for something, connection. That's all we want. Every once in a while, we might find it in a true friend. Many friendships will come only to fade as quickly as a firework, but some, a rare and precious few, turn life up to 11 and keep it there. You gotta hold on to friends like these because, just like air, you'll miss them when they're gone. No one else gets it, but they do, because they know what's in your soul, your heart, your mind. They can blindside you, come out of nowhere, but you'll know them right away. You'll click as perfectly as a jack plug into an amp. They'll know what you're thinking before you've thought it. Anticipating your every move, they'll understand the demons as well as the angels inside of you, never judging you for it either. And together, you'll uncage a thrill that makes you surge with life, but don't be fooled. Friendships are not easy. You gotta put the effort in and take as good care of them as you do your own flesh. There will be good times and epic, adrenaline-filled challenges where it seems there's no way you can make it, but if you trust in one another and commit, you'll find a way, coming through together, closer, stronger. Even so, you, they, the world, in time, everything and everyone changes. Slowly, that boiling energy of young friendship will cool and be replaced by the bonds of a deep, mutual history, complete with the scars that tell the stories of a lifetime well lived. It's as inevitable as ripples altering their size. So don't fight it, go with it. Ride it out together.
And we are back. Guys, this was my subgenre pick, and I picked a Christopher Walken films. And so I did this because I kind of wanted to see a movie I had not seen yet and putting 10 minutes on so that I can talk about Communion.
wasn't a dream.
There's a group that meets.
Group?
People who've seen the same sort of things you have.
Which group of aliens abducted you?
Bob, we are not victims. We are participants.
I don't recall them being human.
I've got to go! My baby's screaming!
You people, you sit there, you're in for one big surprise.
Holy crap.
I've read the book. I haven't seen the movie. I'm very curious.
Very different.
I haven't read the book, but I have now seen the movie. It had, let's see, it's from 1989, had a budget of $5 million and box office of $2 million. Rotten Tomatoes critics give it 38% and the audience gives it 46%. It was directed by Philippe Mora, who has 47 credits, including The Beast Within, which I have spoken about before, Halloween 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf, Pterodactyl Women from Beverly Hills.
Amazing.
I have not seen this, but it is now on the list.
I'm fully in.
Written by Whitley Strieber, who wrote the novel that it is based on. He is the author of Walken, which is my favorite of his books and one of my favorite books, period. He is also the author of The Hunger and a number of alien abduction books after this one. It is starring Christopher Walken.
Yay.
142 credits since 1953, including Mouse Hunt, Blast from the Past, and Gigli.
Oh.
Huh.
Also, you have something to say, Vanessa?
No. No.
I don't think anything need to be said. Please
Nope.
continue.
Also starring Lindsay Krause, who has 79 credits. She was in Slapshot, Indian in the Cupboard, 9 episodes of Buffy as Professor Maggie Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Frances Sternhagen is in this. She has 76 credits. She was in Independence Day, Misery, and Raising Cain. And Joel Carlson, who was a little boy in this. He's been in 12 movies, including Stepfather 3, Motorama, and various episodes of Superboy. Vanessa, you have seen this.
I sure have.
I happen to know your feeling about alien abduction movies. So I will be curious to ask you about this afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. We are introduced to author Whitley Strieber, who lives with his wife and child in Manhattan and is being troubled by dreams where he wakes up and believes there is someone in the room watching them. Christopher Walken is an odd person.
Yes.
And he plays Whitley Strieber as an odd person. But when he wakes up, he is so uncomfortable about the way he wakes up that, like, right off the bat, you are put on edge. I'll just, spoiler, not a great movie. Christopher Walken, fucking awesome in this. So he and his family and another couple all go to the family cottage in the woods, which is really this big, gigantic, like 2 or 3 story cabin out in the middle of nowhere. Super nice. And there's a moment when Andrew, his son, when they first get there, he goes into his room and he sees something. We're not shown what it is, but the look on his face tells us that it's absolutely horrifying. And he starts screaming. So Whitley and his wife rush in, and the kid seems kind of confused and out of it. And he points at a spider on the table as the thing he was screaming at. And Whitley gets it and takes it outside, and they're kind of making fun of the kid. But under his breath, the kid says, maybe that's not what really scared me.
Ooh.
And it's a fucking creepy moment. It is a weird and uncomfortable moment in a movie full of weird and uncomfortable scenes. So that night, the intruder alarm on the cottage goes haywire and bright lights start streaming through the windows, and everyone seems to see this, and they are all fucking terrified, except for Whitley's wife, who is somehow sleeping through it all. And it's just another really creepy scene that crash cuts to the morning after and them having breakfast, and none of them obviously remember what happened. So just the entire movie is putting you on edge, or the entire setup it is. Because, like, so far, I'm really digging this movie, and I'm wondering why it took me so long to get to it. But this is about the point where the movie goes off the rails. So we get lots of scenes of Whitley dealing with his writer's block, like by doing modeling shows in front of his computer, which has a camera and a monitor right next to him so he can see the myriad of different hats he is trying on. And
All right.
it's all really weird and quite honestly kind of stupid. And knowing that this is based on a person's life and that person wrote the script and realizing that this part is probably true made me feel really uncomfortable about Whitley Strieber, quite honestly. Do I do weird things at the computer when I'm trying to write?
Please
Yes.
don't. No, I'm
But
good.
I'm not going to tell you guys about them.
Thank you.
Certainly not going to write them into a script. Too personal. I didn't like seeing it. Anyway, Whitley is having a harder and harder time dealing with his dreams, and he's starting to think that he's remembering being abducted by aliens. He sees various different kinds of aliens in his visions. You get the typical grays with the big eyes, and in fact, there's a scene where he asks his wife if an owl came in the window last night. And she says, no, he must have been dreaming. And it's very reminiscent of that Fourth Kind movie where everybody thinks they see owls. So I didn't, ever really get into all of the alien abduction stuff. So I didn't realize that was a commonality through all of them, but it makes complete sense. It's a very creepy thing. But he also sees these little blue alien doctors, and they don't look very good. And he sees a gigantic insect alien, all sorts of crazy stuff. Just all these aliens kind of hanging out like a team of various aliens who have all gotten together and said, let's go fuck with this guy. And it doesn't really, I don't know. It culminates in an episode where he almost shoots his wife. He's grabbed the shotgun because he's sure there's aliens in the house, and she takes the shotgun away from him and says, you really need to get your shit together. But then at one point she's talking to their son, and he's saying that he has seen, the same things that Dad has seen, although they have not discussed this in front of him. So the wife is now a little uncomfortable. He is convinced to go see a therapist that specializes in hypnotic regression. This is a therapy that I have a real problem with because this is the kind of stuff that was happening at the beginning of the Satanic Panic, and it's mostly been discounted as any kind of real therapy, and often the therapist has been accused of planting these kind of memories into people, and I just really hate it. But anyway, the therapy confirms that yes, he and his family have been visited by aliens many times in the past, and he even has an implant in his neck and all sorts of stuff like that. So he ends up going to a group therapy session of fellow abductees where they are kind of belittling him because he's the newbie. First, they don't like that he's a writer, but then they're just like, asking him about, well, have you been to the ship and all this? And he's like, well, what ship? This happened in my house. And, oh, he hasn't even been to the ship. Yeah. It's just like, oh boy.
Wow.
What a bunch of assholes. So he finally goes to the cottage again, where he seems to have, a good chat with the aliens and realizes, hey, this is my life and there's nothing I can do about it. So this movie is pretty awful for a variety of reasons, mostly the very bad special effects of the aliens, which look very much like the inflatable alien dolls you can buy at like a big party store or something like that. The alien effects are so fucking stupid looking in this. There's a couple of scenes that could have been really, really creepy where he thinks something is, like standing in the corner of the room, and then you see like this alien head peek out from behind this cupboard. And it's like, that would be great if the alien didn't look so stupid. So, but like I said, one thing that is not awful in this is Christopher Walken, who is very, very good.
Nice.
I mean, it's so good. I liked him so much in this that I was just like, God, I wish this was in a better movie. I've got a little trivia. While serving as executive producer, author Whitley Strieber, whose experiences serve as the basis of this film, expressed concerns about Christopher Walken's abilities in portraying him. When Strieber finally told Walken that he might be portraying him as a little too crazy, Walken replied, if the shoe fits.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. The scene in which Stryber laughs when he sees the visitors was Christopher Walken's natural reaction at seeing the alien designs and thinking they looked silly. Director Philippe Mora liked his reaction, thinking it made the scene more disturbing and kept it in, and it did make it more disturbing.
Oh, wow.
In Ryan Sprague's interview with Whitley Strieber on the Somewhere in the Skies podcast, Strieber revealed that he is working on a television series adaptation of this book. So yeah, this is the kind of stuff I just can't get into. I like the idea of alien abduction as a storytelling element, but it makes no sense when you delve deeper that these things have interstellar travel, but they want to stick probes up our butts, or mutilate cattle, or make crop circles. I mean, to what end? I guess is what I'm saying. These highly advanced races want to do this stuff. Why do they continually reveal themselves to the craziest people in our society instead of, the scientists who work at SETI or something like that? So I've made it just under the buzzer. God. Fuck, my timing is way off.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
In a weird coincidence, the story you just told,
there it is.
One of the Northwest short films at Crypticon this year is called Abducted Anonymous by Ben Schwartz. It's like a 15-minute short about a guy going to an anonymous kind of thing to run from the law and what happens there. And it's quite clever and very fun. But when you're describing that, I'm like, oh, man, I've seen that done too.
Interesting.
Vanessa, I would love to hear your thoughts on this film.
This is such a good gateway alien film for me because Christopher Walken is so he's in it, but he's so in it and he's so over the top that the aliens are just not scary. And especially when you get to there's a party scene or something.
There's dancing aliens
dancing.
Where the alien is
But the
he's
time
waving
you
his
get
hands
there,
over his head.
Forget it. I'm just I was in no way spooked. I think there probably were spooky moments along the way, but Walken be walking.
He's so fucking good in this that
wow.
He just outacts anything happening around him.
And I think it's just so natural to him to just, get right into a character and give everything 100%. That and he's surrounded by good actors too. Even the kid in this, I'm not a big fan of child actors. The kid in this he's filmed in a way that is so strange. The things he's saying, first of all, you believe he could be raised by a weirdo like Christopher Walken, but also it's so, off-putting the dialogue he's given, and maybe it's edited that way or something like that, where they're like, oh, this kid is awful, so I'm going to have to just make him weird. I don't know. There's so much working in this film's favor, and then the aliens. And I'm like, how hard is it to make a fucking gray?
Why do they have all the others in there? Maybe that was the book. But I'm like, it just gets real goofy.
Well, it's supposed to be what he actually saw. So, that's what it is.
The lids of the alien, he closes his eyes and everything. You can see that it's like an animatronic eye, like you'd see at Chuck E. Cheese or something. And you guys fucking talk to Jim Henson and let's get a decent Muppet alien.
Yeah. No, I just remember thinking it was a very silly film. And the book cover of Communion is far scarier than anything that happens in
I
this
remember
film.
liking the book, but I don't remember, I read it as BS for what he's talking about, but he's a good writer, so it was a good read.
It absolutely killed his career. I mean,
because he came out.
And nobody could. And I feel really bad for him because I think that he's sincere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that this is what really happened. Do I believe that something happened? Sure. Is it a government thing? Quite possibly.
Right.
Is it a drug thing? Also quite possible.
Very, very possible. Is it beings from outer space that have decided that they would like to? I mean, at one point you see them, they put something up his butt. They probe.
That's right.
Yes.
So, man, they go every direction. I mean, by the end, though, you're he's kind of friends with them.
Well, that's just it. He comes to a conclusion of okay, these things have been, he has a regressed memory where he realizes this has happened to him as a child and this has happened his entire life and that it will now be happening to his son. And
fun.
it's just this kind of, well, this is my life kind of thing.
How weird.
And I don't know, just quite bad.
Alien
Vanessa.
kink. Bring it on. Moving on.
All right. Well, I watched a film I had seen before, but it's been a while and I couldn't super well remember it, and that is the 1995 movie The Prophecy.
Mary,
What?
can you keep a secret? The biggest secret ever.
Centuries ago, a second coming was foretold.
What did he say to you, Mary?
He asked if I could keep a secret.
What was that?
Something he gave me.
But what's coming
He wants something. Something that's here.
isn't what anyone expects.
Oh my God.
It's a war in heaven. Over what? Us. Humans.
Christopher Walken. The Prophecy.
Yes. So Rotten Tomato score of 46% from critics and 64% from audience. Budget of $8 million, box office of $16.1 million. So it didn't do too bad. Directed and written by Gregory Wyden. He's directed 2 films. It's this and 1 episode of Tales from the Crypt, the TV series. And he's more of a writer. He has 25 credits under his belt, including Backdraft, Highlander 1 and 2, and more episodes of Tales from the Crypt. Starring quite a few people. We got Christopher Walken as Gabriel, 142 credits, including an incredible performance in Severance. If anyone has not yet watched that show, go watch it. It's so good. He's also in Disaster, a major motion picture ride starring you.
Is that at Universal Studios or something?
I don't know. I did not look it up very far. He's in The Raven as the voice of the Raven. Madonna's Good Girl music video as an uncredited angel. And Sarah Plain-Tall, Winter's End. Sure, I read that in elementary school. But we also have Elias Cotes. I never say his name right. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Casey Jones. He is in also 106 episodes of Chicago PD and plays a lot of various policemen. Virginia Madsen is Catherine, 133 credits, including Candyman, and 10 episodes of the recent Swamp Thing. Eric Stoltz is in this as Simon, 29 credits, Some Kind of Wonderful, Say Anything, Pulp Fiction, 18 episodes of Caprica. Amanda Plummer as Rachel. She's 113 credits. She's Christopher Plummer's daughter and was recently in Picard Season 3 as Vatic. Adam Goldberg as Jerry. We have not seen him in a long time, I don't think. He was in Saving Private Ryan and played Eddie in Friends. And the person on this with the least number of credits, Viggo Mortensen as Lucifer. He has 67 credits. Lord of the Rings, The Road, Eastern Promises. Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
Had you seen this before?
I had, but I'd forgotten a lot.
He is such a spectacular Lucifer. His voice is so sexy.
Oh my God, he's so good. Okay. The story is following Thomas Daggert, Casey Jones, is on the verge of becoming a priest when he's struck with a vision of dead angels, some kind of war. It horrifies him so much that he loses his faith right there on the spot because he feels like God has shown him too much. So he becomes a cop. Simon, an angel on earth, seeks him out after having read his priest thesis from back in the day, and he warns him that the things that he saw in his vision are things to actually come. Then Uziel, a lieutenant of Gabriel, Walken, shows up, and Simon and he fight. Simon handily kills him, ripping out his heart, gouging his eyes, and pushing him out a window. And of course, Thomas Daggert is sent to the scene to investigate, despite it not being his usual beat, because in the I don't know, the murder room. What do they call this? The space
Crime
where,
scene.
yes, the crime scene. Thank you. His thesis was found because, of course, Simon. A medical examiner discovers Uziel had no eyes, was a hermaphrodite, and had the blood chemistry of an aborted fetus. On his possession was a Bible older than any on earth, and it had a special chapter past the book of Revelations, as we know it, discussing a second war in heaven between the angels. They grew jealous over God giving humans souls, aka grace. And there is a prophecy that a dark soul will be found on earth and used as a weapon. So Simon has found the dark soul that is predicted to come. He was in a very evil war criminal / cannibal / mass murderer who has died in a small desert town. So he goes to suck the soul out of this guy's face in a very definitely sexy, not sexy scene. You're like, oh, what are you doing? Stop. He then hides in a schoolroom where a little girl named Mary finds him and befriends him. He's not doing so good, though. He looks very sick. And knowing that he will die soon, he passes the soul to her. Gabriel is on his trail, though, showing up looking for the soul and discovering that it is not in the kernel. He has him dug up, sort of has a little sniff on him, and he's like, where is it? He finds and tortures Simon, but to no avail, and finally discovers that the soul is hidden in Mary. He's determined to rip it out of her, killing her in the process. What he didn't plan on is Thomas Daggert turning up and also trying to understand what is happening by challenging Gabriel. Also, Mary's schoolteacher, Catherine. Together, they must protect Mary against charming psychotic Gabriel and other angels that come in the name of the war. Christopher Walken fucking loves this role.
I love this role.
I'm Gabriel. I can't do it. I'm Gabriel. I'm from heaven. So the things that we see him do in this movie include getting his face really close to a table and licking the blood off of a table, finger gunning a dead corpse, which then explodes in fire. Tons of great lines, including sniffing the air and going, I can always smell a graveyard. And you gotta come work with me. Nobody tells you when to go to bed. You get all the ice cream you could want. And
he tried to do Vinnie Barbarino.
It was better at the time. And you get to kill all day and all night. He kisses people constantly. He likes to do a cat sit. This is common for the angels in this movie. There are a lot of like sitting on like very thin perches, just like the edges of things, like a cat. He teaches kids how to play an angelic trumpet, which explodes glass behind them. It's very fun. Hangs out at a diner asking a waitress questions while covered in blood from 2 gaping gunshot wounds and just plays it super straight. And finds a red vine on the side of the road, licks it, and just eats it. But it looked really stale, and I love stale red vines, so I felt like a soul connection in that moment. Viggo Mortensen is incredible as Lucifer. He is having the time of his flipping life, especially near the end when he's like suddenly deciding he wants to get everyone's souls who are there. And he's like, hey, you want to come back with me? Yeah. He gets like really whispery and like desperate and like creepy. It's very fun. Overall, I think the script is extremely fun. It has great lines throughout. I really enjoyed it. However, I can kind of see why it might not have gotten the biggest draw or reviews, because it's kind of tough to figure out what's happening, specifically with the soul, the soul of a war criminal being stored in Simon, then Mary, and then why everyone's fighting for it. It's a little rough to understand, and I only fully grasped it this time around because I was writing so much down. Viggo Mortensen, a little bit of trivia, claims that prior to shooting this their scene together, Christopher Walken ate several whole garlic cloves. In a bit of truly inspired foreshadowing, of course, Christopher Walken playing this role was eerily similar to his role in the Madonna music video for Bad Girl. Colonel Arnold Hawthorne is played by Patrick McAllister. Due to the nature of his role and the long gap after It's Alive from 1974, McAllister is not credited, but he appears as special thanks for his collaboration in the movie, credited as Patrick Curley McAllister. WatchMojo Online list aggregator claims Viggo Mortensen's portrayal of Lucifer in The Prophecy is the best in cinema history. The film was followed by the sequel, The Prophecy 2, starring Walken and Jennifer Beal. And then that went straight to video, even though it was supposed to go to theaters. After that, The Ascent, which also had Walken in it. Then The Uprising, which did not. And Forsaken. It has since gone on to become a cult film.
Listening to her description, I'm going, I know why Kelly loves this movie.
I fucking love this movie so hard.
It's so huge. It's so over the top. And like Christopher Walken is just so fun to watch because every scene, he just owns it.
Yeah. The scene in the school attic with Simon and the little girl is so uncomfortable because it feels very
like sexual.
Yeah, it feels like
she's sitting on his lap and they're sharing a soda. And this is not the only time. Like she's with him twice, and then later when Gabriel shows up at the school, he's got a little girl on his lap too.
Yeah.
And he's like holding her, and everything along these, because you're like, oh well, they're angels, it's okay, but you're also like, this is a grown man with a like little girl on their lap. It's really weird.
It's super uncomfortable, and Gregory Wyden's angels are not good. They barely tolerate humans. I think he refers to us as talking monkeys or something like that.
Oh my God, it's so good because I didn't realize, it took me a while to figure out that Viggo Mortensen is the devil, because all the angels hate humans so fucking much that when he shows up and he's like, I'm on the opposite side, you're like, oh, okay, so he's on the heaven side. I was like, I wonder which angel he is. I was like, is he Michael? And I felt so stupid. And then he's like, we already have one hell. And I was like, oh, no, Viggo. But yeah, they do such a good job.
And then one little bit of trivia, right off camera during the scene where Amanda Plummer is digging up the grave is our buddy Philip Fracassi.
Oh, really?
He worked on this film. In fact, it might be him shoveling in that scene when you see the dirt flying up.
Oh, yeah.
So I always thought that was really cool. Just love this movie. You know, Gregory Wyden, Highlander was his film school thesis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So his first professional script and his first sale.
I'm always a little surprised when you hear that he also wrote Highlander 2.
Except that this movie feels so much like the person who wrote Highlander.
Prophecy does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. How are the sequels?
Oh, awful.
Are
the
they
worst.
Okay? I've never really watched any that I know
You know what? Not quite as bad as any of the Highlander sequels, though.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I remember seeing all three back to back, and I really did not remember anything about the next ones.
They lose all the magic. I'm sure that he, sold the sequel rights away in his first sale and probably made a big chunk of money. Then he went on to do like Backdraft, and then that was pretty much all we heard of Christopher.
Yeah.
Or Gregory.
Oh, well.
Yeah, Gregory Wyden.
Okay, I'm so happy you did this.
Yeah.
This makes me I feel like I've got to do Prophecy again tonight.
Not a bad
You
choice.
should. It was such a fun kind of roller coaster this time around.
And glad it's not going to end up in his freezer. I'm glad you liked this one.
No, I like this one. I don't own it, but I did like it. Maybe I could actually buy it and put it on a shelf.
I have a DVD that's a box set of like most of the Hellraiser movies and most of the Prophecy movies. One of those by 12 movies.
Oh, God.
Right, on 4 discs.
Yes.
Angels and Demons.
Yes. I'm putting 10 minutes on the buzzer.
All right. Well, we go from aliens to demons to war.
Oh,
God.
With 1980's The Dogs of War.
Academy Award winner Christopher Walken. The Dogs of War.
The job pays $10,000.
15.
It's only a reconnaissance.
The Reconnaissance.
The reconnaissance is no good if you don't come back.
I always come back.
Welcome to Zangaro.
Whoa, wait a minute!
This is not America, Mr. Brown.
The mission.
Could a well-trained, well-equipped mercenary force succeed?
Anybody want to know how we're going to do this? Give me names, dates. I'll see to it the money gets paid. And run hard deals. These guys put up $1 million, so let's make sure there's change, because I figure we ought to keep it.
$1,500 1,000 rounds.
If you're trying to stick us, I can do business down the street.
It's the ultimate in killing technology. No, you put the right mix in this thing, and its killing potential is fantastic. Fragmentation, grenades, tactical, anti-tank, anti-personnel.
The weapons.
Whose war are you gonna fight?
Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Academy Award winner Christopher Walken. Tom Berenger. The bestseller by Frederick Forsyth. The Dogs of War.
Now, I remember this one because I think I watched it with my dad or mom or something on TV and left an awesome impression on me, which kind of lived up to watching it again, but we'll get into that later. The Rotten Tomatoes rating was 67 by critics, 52 by the audience, budgeted at $8 million, made 5.4. Did not do real well. This is available around on like Tubi and out for rent, so it's pretty easy to find. Directed by John Irvin, who also did Raw Deal, Schwarzenegger movie. Nobody gives him a raw deal. And Hamburger Hill, Ghost Story, the TV version of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is a 7-episode miniseries in BBC. Writers had 3: Gary DeVore, who wrote Raw Deal, Running Scared, and Tracked. I don't know that one. George Melko, who wrote Killer Wave, Tidal Wave, No Escape, and a Titanic video game. It's a sea thing, I guess.
Wow.
Frederick Forsyth, not the scriptwriter, but he wrote the original book. He also wrote Day of the Jackal. Frederick Forsyth Presents, which I had not heard of. I'm going, well, this might be interesting. 6-episode little series. And Cold Name Wolverine, which has nothing to do with the X-Men, from 1996. And an uncredited rewrite by Michael Simonio, who wrote Deer Hunter, Year of the Dragon, and Magnum Force. So I can imagine what kind of content he added. Starring, Christopher Walken in one of his first major roles, where he is the A character in this one. He's been in a few things. The Jesus Roles, Joe Dirt 2, Peter Pan Live, and of course the narrator from Mouse Hunt, one of our personal favorites apparently here. Also starring Tom Berenger, who is in The Most Dangerous Game 2022, which I need to look up because I hadn't even heard of that one.
I watched it, and you do not need to look it up.
Thank you. The Sniper movies, which were a lot of, I didn't realize how many of those there were. Ally McBeal, Major League, Platoon, and The Sentinel. 111 productions for that guy. Colin Blakely, Man for All Seasons, The Hellion, The Spy with the Cold Nose, Decline and Fall of a Bird Watcher.
Oh, God.
Ed O'Neill, with full head of hair, from Married with Children, 260 episodes of that, and 250 episodes of Modern Family. So, he's been on some sitcoms. But he's also in Little Giants, and Cruising was his first movie.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
He's not in it much. And Jo Beth Williams, who's in The Poltergeist, Kramer versus Kramer, Dexter, and 124 other things. So I did watch, the disc I have of this is from a company called Scorpion Releasing, who sadly the creator of died the day I ordered it. Luckily, it was before I ordered it, so I don't feel partially responsible. But it has two versions, the US release and the international version, which was 14 minutes longer, so I watched the international version. Begins with the Shakespearean quote, of course, of Unleash the Dogs of War. And the mercenaries are driving out of what looks like a pretty hot war zone to open the movie, and they come across a waiting plane, which is not there for them, but it becomes there for them as they take it over and bring their guys on it. The beginning is pretty over the top. Big, giant explosions, the plane taking off, and all this stuff with no context. You really have no idea what's going on. And then that's it. It just cuts. It's like, okay, here's all the guys, here's what they do, and we're done. This then immediately goes to one of the scenes that was cut from the US, which is a baptism of a baby, and includes more of Joe Beth, who's kind of a mystery in the US cut. She sort of just gets mentions and no idea who the hell she is. But we got to give Walken that nice moment of being good to somebody. So some little kid asks him for money, and the next scene you see the kid trailing behind him carrying his groceries. He's like, yeah, earn your money's a better way to do it than just begging or something like that. And that's as close as I get to a Walken impression usually. So this guy he knows from the BBC or from the BBC, from British Secret Service, shows up at his front door asking him to do a resource reconnaissance mission in Africa about a country that they're trying to figure out if the guy's going to be attacked. Well, his story is, are they going to be attacking countries around him, or is he just a dictator for his own thing? So he goes as a bird photographer. Okay. Wonder if the guy who was in the Birdwatcher movie said, hey, you know what you could go as? But he goes to the airport and gets stopped. And the way he's stopped and interrogated and then a lot of his stuff stolen, apparently a lot of people have come up over the years going, that's a great scene. Something almost exactly like that happened to me when I traveled to that country. The guy steals money, alcohol, cigarettes, and a penthouse.
Oh my God.
There's a British guy doing a documentary in this who's getting roughed up and stuff, who basically tells the guy, this dictator has no interest in invading other countries. He just is fine killing his own people for a while. And Jamie, who's Walken's character name, presents that back to the BBC guy, who then goes, all right, now I want to hire you to stage a coup. So he hires him for, well, actually he said, no, not doing that. I'm out, until he keeps adding money into it and eventually goes, okay, fine. And here's where the movie slows down significantly. The stuff with Walken doing the bird thing was actually pretty good because he's dealing with the soldiers and the problems at the hotel and neat little scenes throughout that. Once they've got the mission to invade, it becomes a buying movie where they go in and, well, we need these guns and we need these resources. The problem is those scenes are ridiculously repetitive. It's a very similar, I go in, I make an offer, or they make an offer, and then they make a lower counter offer, and they agree to the lower counter offer, and then you go to another scene and the same thing happens. And it's like 40 minutes of the movie.
Oh my God.
So the second act of this film is just boring. And Christopher Walken's not given enough to overcome that, and Tom Berenger's not given enough to overcome that. So it's just sort of disappointing. Still looks good. Everything's done well. Everything looks nice. It's just, you could have done that scene 2 or 3 times instead of 4 or 5 times, and it would have been just fine. But and then I'm watching the time. How much movie? There's not a lot of time left. The end battle is incredibly fast. It's like 20 minutes or less. And so it goes and it's vicious, and they do what they do, and there's a nice little twist at the ending, sort of. But overall, it's still a pretty damn good film, largely because Christopher Walken is he doesn't talk or walk like you think of Christopher Walken now. He's got a very set style and a very set movement. And you see it occasionally with the way he gestures and stuff is similar in all of his movies now. But at that time, he didn't have that. He was acting, and he was being what the character needed to be instead of being Christopher Walken being cool in a movie, which he's so damn good at now. But so it was neat to see that. The tagline, "Cry Havoc and Let Slip the Dogs of War." Well,
kind of on the nose.
That's right. Don Siegel was originally slated to direct this, but then he's like, I don't like the script very much. So he passed. This was Irvin's first feature, but he had done like 20 plus TV shows and short films. So he had a lot of work in his pocket. The Dogs of War comes from William Shakespeare in Julius Caesar and reads exactly like the tagline. Christopher Walken was not the original choice. The United Artists wanted a known person like Burt Reynolds, who might have worked, but I don't think would have worked. Stallone, who would not have worked in this role, and Sean Connery, who also don't think would have worked in this role. But yeah, none of those were great choices. So Michael Cimino, who worked with Walken and the Deer Hunter, said, "This is the guy you want." And he said, "Yeah, that's the guy I want." And United Artists said, "Fine, we're cutting your production budget by $4 million. So he got the man he wanted, but he paid for it with a third of his budget. A couple other little things. Tom Berenger is not happy with this movie because he said he was almost completely cut out of the film, and the woman who played his wife was completely cut out of the film. So he was all pissy about that. Frederick Forsyth, while doing the research for the movie, pretended he was actually going to stage a coup, went to Equatorial Guiana and met with gun runners and people like that. He later said, "It was the scariest, most frightening group of people I have ever been around in my life." One more thing, because you got to mention it with Dogs of War, is the XM-18 grenade launcher. There's a very unique gun in this movie. And if you see the posters, it's on the posters. I thought it was used a little less. It's used like crazy in the final scene. Like they have 2 or 3 of them. It's loosely based on a real life weapon, but it didn't work anywhere near as well as what the movie makes it look like. Redesigned or something like 35. But I said really didn't do what it wanted. The army was not that interested in it until this movie came out. The army came to the original designer named Manville and said, "Tell us about your weapon." And then they found out, it's not really that. It's used much more accurately in Terminator 2, where it's basically shoots tear gas.
I've never seen this movie.
Oh, you hadn't?
No.
It's worth seeing. But man, that second act is a slog. I do like watching actors who we now know so well when they're really early in their career and haven't created their movie persona if they're strong enough to be able to do that, which he definitely is.
I think he's got like some professional dancing in his background.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why he did that one Fat Boy Slim song.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if you go to the IMDb page, it actually, weirdly, it has a supercut of all of his dancing back to back in every film. Like somebody was bored at IMDb and was like, "I know what I'm going to do."
Wow.
Yeah, I remember when that video first came out, my first thought was, how did they animate Walken dance like he does? But no, it's actually him. Obviously, he probably didn't fly around the room on his own. That was probably assisted.
Right. Okay, well, cool. We can't tell you what the subgenre for next episode is because our guest, whoever that will be picking that. So this is the part where we thank everybody for liking and sharing posts, for participating in the value for value model, for reaching out and telling us whether they like stuff, for leaving messages on the Strange Eons Radio hotline, which is 253-237-4266. Leave us a message.
Make comments. We love comments. Comments are fun. We've got some great information in some of our comments from listeners and stuff, talking about stuff that we might have missed or didn't know. I love it. It's great.
It's great.
And Vanessa, I'm gonna really miss you for the next couple of weeks.
I'm gonna miss you guys too.
It's gonna be very weird to record an episode, 2 episodes without you.
Right.
I know, it sucks.
Send lots of pictures. I'm sure we'll all be in contact and all that stuff. We'll We'll tell you how much we're hating it with whoever our guest host is.
Excellent. Excellent. I would expect nothing less.
You could call and leave us a message while you're off on vacation.
there's
Just
an
say
idea.
hi.
Yeah, I
Let-
could. Maybe I'll do just that.
If
We'll
you're-
see how the reception is for my Verizon, which I cannot get reception in my own home.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
But maybe over there I'll get it.
Let us know if that shrimp place I recommended is still there. And if you go there.
Yeah, I will. I definitely will. Well, I will. Maybe I'll bring you guys back some. We'll see.
Ooh, boy.
See how it
Not a haunted tiki.
goes. I will not bring back Hawaiian sand.
I saw that episode of the Brady Bunch.
or a haunted tiki.
Okay, well then that means we'll be back in 7 short days with somebody else and some topic.
It should be fun.
So cool.
Transportation and other considerations for Strange Eons Radio, produced by Pan Am Airlines. When you think of traveling, think of Pan Am. You can't beat the experience. Guests of Strange Eons Radio stay at Econo Lodge Everett. It's an easy stop on the road, you know what we mean. Strange Eons Radio is recorded live in front of a studio audience. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a positive review on your favorite podcast app. Sit, Ubu, sit.
One of the 10 commandments, right, is Jesus, is taking the Lord's name in vain, right?